A few weeks ago, Rabbi Martin Wiener gave the invocation at the Democratic National Convention here in San Francisco. 1984 was a different time with different hairstyles and different music and different issues than we have today. But the words of the invocation then remain so relevant to us now. Rabbi Wiener invited Americans to, quote, affirm our deep faith in the future of democracy. That future he was talking about is now. He entreated us, may we as citizens reconsecrate our energies to the task of uniting our too often divided society. May we not despair about life and curse the darkness. Let each of us bravely light one candle, he said, of hope and love to illuminate the world. 40 years later, the world has changed. Michael Jackson has been replaced as a megastar by Taylor Swift, who wasn't even alive in 1984. We've seen the invention of driverless cars and the creation of the internet. But despite tremendous progress we've made in many areas, we've also been weighted down by fear and despair. The very darkness Rabbi Wiener warned us against. In these last few years, darkness has crept into our society. And despair has often overwhelmed us. It has been hard to see the light. Our problems have seemed to just magnify. A couple of months ago, I watched as another rabbi spoke at another political convention. In her invocation, the rabbi instructed us to banish the darkness too, as Rabbi Wiener had. But instead of using a candle to do it, she invoked God to bestow upon us something less tangible and much more powerful. She prayed, may we be guided by a fierce moral imagination, a ball of fire within, our brightest imaginations to illuminate the darkness. It was a prayer for us to reimagine a world filled with joy and hope, respect, kindness, honor, dignity. Perhaps the former First Lady Michelle Obama said it best on the very same stage when she declared that hope is contagious. America, hope is making a comeback, she said. It's about time. Not long ago, our country's future seemed shockingly bleak. Democracy was punched in the gut on January 6, 2021. Our capital was attacked. Our deepest held values were under siege. We were forced to ask ourselves, will democracy survive? Just 2 weeks later, our first ever youth poet laureate stood on the steps of the Capitol to share the poem she had just written. Despite her young age, she spoke like a poet prophet, a seer of the future. She instructed us to believe that hope would prevail. I have quoted from her poem, The Hill We Climb, so many times in the last 3 years. Her brave words reminded us to look past the moment we were in, to focus on a new future. She recited, we are striving to forge our union with purpose, and so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. A new world beckoned us, she said, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. As our nation focused on the steps of the Capitol building, America was enveloped in darkness. Our young modern poet prophet told us to fix our gaze on the future, our shared future, and to light up the darkness with hope. The Jewish people has been doing this for millennia. We've demonstrated a courageous imagination throughout history, and a determination to focus on the future. This has been a great source of strength for us for 3,000 years, and a great help to us in dark times. Our focus on the future has kept our people alive and thriving throughout history. It's our people's story. Our ability to look forward in dark times is one of the great Jewish lessons for humanity. Remember Nachshon? As the Israelites left Egypt and slavery, our ancestors came to the shore of the Red Sea. How would they cross? As the water came up higher and higher on the Israelites, the people stopped. They wondered, what do we do? We are defeated. And then a guy, Nachshon, led the way. The rabbis teach about this great hero. He was just a regular old guy. Any one of us. He jumped in. He believed so strongly in the future and the possibilities that were just ahead that he jumped into the water. And as soon as he did, the rabbis teach us, God split the Red Sea. It was Nachshon's belief in the future that saved our people. He looked forward, never succumbing to despair. His courageous action led us all to freedom. In these last years, a parallel story has emerged in America. We've stood at the edge of rising water, staring out, seeing only danger. As a country, we've lost our courage, our joy. We've let despair seep in through the cracks. We've been nearly ripped apart by a denial of our common future. We've been unable to imagine a way forward through a darkness that has enveloped us. And we've almost lost hope. Where is our Nachshon? From all the places our ancestors left to come to this country, they brought hope. We are the inheritors of that hope. Each of us could be a modern-day Nachshon. This past summer, I took my kids to visit America's symbol of hope. We went to the Statue of Liberty. Over the years, I had seen her from various vantage points in Manhattan, the High Line, a rooftop wedding, even from the famous Staten Island ferry. But I had never been on Liberty Island or seen Lady Liberty up close. To prepare for our trip, we got a wonderful children's book called Her Right Foot. It tells the story of the design of the Statue of Liberty, the engineers who built her, the materials necessary to create this iconic statue. But the title of the book points to something about the Statue of Liberty that often goes unnoticed: the position of her right foot. As we got off the boat on Liberty Island, I saw Lady Liberty's famous oxidized green color. I thought about Emma Lazarus's poem, imagining how tempest-tossed immigrants, like my grandparents, might have felt coming into New York's harbor. But as I stepped off the boat, I was eager to see the statue's right foot under all the drapery. Do you know what she's doing? Yes, a few nods. Yes, she's walking. Lady Liberty is taking a step forward. Her right foot is lifting off the ground. She's in motion, walking towards the future, just like our ancestors did. Tonight, the Jewish people all over the world are reminded of our mission to walk bravely towards the future. In our Machzor, we find these powerful words, Hayom Harat Olam. On this day, the world comes into being. Each year, we are reminded that the world as we will know it doesn't yet exist. Hayom Harat Olam. Today, a new world is being created. To announce that, on Rosh Hashanah, we hear the shofar. In the morning, we will hear the emotional sounds of the shofar, sounds of birth, the rabbis say, but also sounds of life. The Tekiah, a deep breath. The Shavarim, a warning. The Teruah, a celebration. And the Tekiah Gedola, pure inspiration. The Talmud instructs us that on Rosh Hashanah we must hear the announcement of the shofar. Pay attention. Today, the future is born. When we got off the ferry from Liberty Island, we walked through Lower Manhattan. We met a really interesting man on the street. New York is the kind of place where you can have conversations with interesting strangers. As the man crossed the street, I noticed his Israeli hostage tag. I put my elbows out, blocking the sidewalk a little too much so I could get his attention. "Is that a hostage tag?" I asked him. "Yes," he said. We stood there talking for nearly an hour. My kids ran around on the sidewalk, dipping in and out of the conversation as they played tag. On one of their loops around us, the man extended his arm and showed us a tattoo with Hebrew letters. Hayom Harat Olam, it said. "Do you know what that's from?" the man asked. He was surprised to find out that, in fact, I knew the answer. "I do," I said. "It's from the Machzor." I looked puzzled. "Why is this written on your arm?" "I got this tattoo right after October 7th, he explained. "I knew life would never be the same again. A new world would have to be born. I wanted to look to our future." I just stood there in awe. Out of the depths of his despair, he focused on a new future. He chose the words of this day, of Rosh Hashanah, to bank on hope instead of despair. Hayom Harat Olam. Today, the future is born. In the last few months, I've thought of the man I met on the street in New York many times. To be mired in darkness, but to believe in the future, now that takes chutzpah, the best possible kind. The kind our ancestors held on to, the kind we come by honestly. We have inherited the most powerful weapon ever created to combat darkness: light. It is the Jewish message to the world. We light Shabbat candles, 2 tiny flames of hope every single week. We light a braided Havdalah candle, the reminder that the new week brings renewed opportunity. We light Hanukkah candles at the darkest time of the darkest month of the year, filling the winter nights with light. The ruling from the famous debate between Rabbis Hillel and Shammai in the Talmud is perhaps the single most important instruction in Judaism. They questioned whether we should start with 8 candles and go down to 1, or 1 and go up to 8. Of course, the Talmud teaches, add 1 more candle each night, bringing more and more light to brighten the darkness. This is what it means to live a Jewish life. 5 weeks ago, the devastating news of the murder of 6 young Israeli hostages was announced. The funeral of Hirsch Goldberg Poland was shared by thousands and thousands of mourners around the world. His American-Israeli parents had just spoken at the Democratic Convention in Chicago. At the convention, the hope of bringing him and the other hostages home alive prevailed and brought thousands of people to tears as the convention hall was filled with chanting, "Bring them home, bring them home." When only a short time later the hope of that outcome was brutally extinguished, Hirsch's parents spoke to the world again from their son's funeral. And you know what they said? John Poland stood at his son's funeral and said, "Od lo avda tikvatenu." These words are from Israel's national anthem, Hatikva, the hope. The words echoed across the world. Od lo avda tikvatenu, Hirsch's dad said. As they buried their son, they declared, our hope is not lost. For the other hostages, for peace, for a different future. That declaration is the very essence of what it means to be a Jew. I referred to this incredible statement with awe just a couple weeks ago in Bart Hall when I interviewed Shira Ben-Sasson Furstenberg. Shira is the Israel director of the New Israel Fund. She was visiting from Jerusalem. As we began talking, I asked her about the Goldberg Poland family. she told me to come back to my questions about Hirsch and his family. So first, we talked about the work she was doing to create civil society and to take care of people who were suffering all around her. She said what we might imagine an Israeli to say in the midst of this crisis: there was no time to think, only to act. People needed immediate help, and she quickly organized her networks and the networks of her networks. She talked about lessons she learned picking avocados. Many Israelis went to kibbutzim that needed hands to harvest fruit and vegetables. She and so many others just did the immediate work that needed to be done. I asked her where her hope came from. She said she wasn't sure if she had hope, but she had work to do for a future. Just before we concluded the interview, I returned to my question about the Goldberg-Polin family and their ability to find hope. I knew that Shira is a very active participant in her synagogue, the one that Hirsch's family is involved in. She talked about the enormous outpouring of love and support for the family, of their unwavering hope and commitment to bring home the other hostages. Before we came to Bart Hall for the interview, Shira and I talked in my office. She said she was worried that she would cry too much in front of our community. I promised her that we would help her cry and tell her story. As we walked out towards Bart Hall, she turned to me and said, "But that email." I knew exactly what email she meant. I had just seen it myself. Maybe you did too. She said, "It was just posted to our synagogue community. It wasn't meant to be shared. It was real." Rachel Goldberg had posted a note to her own community in Jerusalem at the end of Hirsch's Shiva. Somehow, it was shared around the world. In it, Rachel wrote these excruciating and beautiful words about her son. She said, "I will now have to learn to be in this world without him, but having him all the years I did is worth the pain I will have, worth every tear and sigh and lump in my throat and every pang of pain until it's my time to be buried next to him when I am 120 and have many grandchildren and great-grandchildren, hopefully one who is named Hirsch." Perhaps this is the most profoundly Jewish sentence ever spoken. From the depths of the most searing pain, this mother declared not only her love for her son, but her love for life, and her promise to keep living it to 120 in honor of that love. From the depths of the most searing pain, she looked to the future, always to the future, to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren she hopes to know, and to the one who will exist one day, carrying the name of her beloved son, who will never be forgotten. She concluded her letter with these words: "May Hirsch's light always inspire us. May his memory be a blessing and a revolution, but not a crazy revolution, just a revolution to think and do differently, to think and do better. Love, Rachel." Hayom Harat Olam. Today, a new world is born. Even in the darkest moments our people has experienced, we look forward. People have asked over the centuries, how have the Jews kept believing in the future? It is a tall order for a community that has experienced deep darkness over and over and over again. It is the Ner Tamid, the eternal light that burns within our community, within each of us that is never extinguished. We have never succumbed to despair, even when we had a right to. We have always returned our focus to the promise of the future. You've probably heard the Talmudic story of Honi the circle maker. As the rabbis tell the story, a guy named Honi went out for a walk and saw an old man planting a carob tree. He asked, "How long does it take for this tree to bear fruit?" The old man replied, 70 years. Honi asked him, "Will you live for another 70 years?" The old man replied, I found carob trees in the world because my ancestors planted these for me, so I plant these trees for generations to come. We Jews are dedicated to the future, even as we navigate the present. Over 3 millennia, this is what it has meant to be a Jew, to struggle, to dream, to build. We hold on to hope for a future that will be bright for the generations ahead. The rabbis of the Talmud wrote a blessing for us, one which has been passed down through the generation. These words from Brachot 17a remind us that 5785, our new year, is filled with possibility. A new world awaits us. These ancient words bless us as we look to a new future, one filled with imagination, wonder, and hope. The Talmud says, may you live to see your world fulfilled. May your destiny be for worlds still to come. And may you trust in generations past and yet to be. May your heart be filled with intuition and your words be filled with insight. May songs of praise ever be upon your tongue and your vision be on a straight path before you. May your eyes shine with the light of holy words and your face reflect the brightness of the heavens. May your lips speak wisdom and your fulfillment be in righteousness, even as you ever yearn to hear the words of the holy ancient one of old. Hayom Harat Olam. On this day, a new world comes into being. Each year, we are reminded that the world as we will know it doesn't yet exist. Hayom Harat Olam, today, a new world begins. Together, we will build the future. Shana Tova.